Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third episode of Ask a Stream Management or Integrated Water Management Practitioner. I'm Stacy Bowe with Strategic by Nature, and I work with River Network to support the Stream Management Plan Peer Learning Network. And this Ask a Practitioner video is a part of the tools and resources we're producing to help people as they move forward in their stream management planning. So today I'm joined with Hannah Holm of the Hutchins Water Center at Colorado Mesa University and Seth Mason of Lodick Hydrological to discuss their approaches and experience with managing the vast amounts of data that typically result from a river health assessment. After listening to this video, you should have a better understanding of how to approach data management by using a plan or the tools that are out there that can help with data management. Our bios and additional resources are located in the show notes for the episode, and we are going to have everything posted on coloradosmp.org on the community and learning page. And I'm also going to point out that our discussion today covers a very small sliver of the SMP process related to assessing existing conditions. So with that, I'm going to dive right in and ask questions of Seth and Hannah. Thank you so much for being here today. So to get us started, Seth, can you give us an overview of the types of data that can be generated or evaluated as part of a stream management or integrated water management plan?
Sure, yeah, no problem. Before I jump into that, I just want to thank you for having us on today. I think this is an important discussion, and I hope lots of folks find it really useful. What kinds of data come out of stream management planning processes? Generally, I think that depends on the needs of the local stakeholder group or the community that initiated the planning effort. Those data types might kind of be informed by specific objectives or goals of the planning effort itself, but generally, stream management plans intend to collect data that fall into one of two buckets, or perhaps both. The two buckets that make up E&R needs, environmental and recreational data. On the environmental side, we have things like hydrology data, geomorphology data. You might think about characterizing riparian areas or water quality. Aquatic biota certainly fit in there, characterizing the population of different fish or macroinvertebrates that live in and along a stream course. You might think about characterizing habitat availability and quality for those critters. And the list goes on, but those are some kind of frequent ones that you see. On the recreational side, we're in the R now of E&R use needs. Often we see folks collecting information on flow preferences among different recreational user groups, information about access issues or constraints along a river or stream, and information about the diversity of different recreational use types. So people like to go fishing on this section, or they like to tube, or they like to fish from their tubes, or whatever it is. And that can inform how you might then manage for those specific uses. So those, it's a non-exhaustive list, certainly, but often we see those categories of data being considered by at least these groups doing stream management planning.
Great, thanks. Do existing data sets come in different formats or programs, and what does that usually look like? So I'm assuming some of the data you're collecting as part of your process, and some of it you're pulling from somebody that's already done that data collection. So what does that diversity look like?
Yeah, I think that's really one of the most challenging things about these planning efforts, because they tend to be pretty broad in their coverage of different topic areas, their treatment of different data types. And so you spoke to this idea that you've got data coming from different sources, different streams, right? One example might be stream flow data coming from the USGS or CDWR stream gauges. That comes in nice tabular formats. It's time series data. You can get data characterizing daily average flows, for example. That stuff's regularly used. And the formats of that data are kind of specific to the organization, right? USGS uses its own format. Division of Water Resources uses a separate format, but you can get those both as CSV files, or you may be using simulation model outputs. State mod simulation models are used pretty broadly to inform these planning efforts. And state mod produces binary files that you have to read with a separate software program, and then output CSV files, and those have their own unique data formatting associated with them. So those are pretty simple time series data streams, but even among those three different sources, USGS, CDWR, and models, you can have different formats that you have to figure out how to deal with in order to get them to all play nicely together. And then, it gets more complicated as we start thinking about some of the other categories of data. Geomorphology, that's a great one. There is no master data warehouse for geomorphological information on rivers and streams, right? So you're often doing that work within the context of a planning effort. And it may be work that uses historical aerial imagery and using hand digitization. You might be going out on the floodplain and doing on-the-ground surveys. You might be combining the two and doing some sort of GIS mapping. And so, again, you've got these really different data sources that you're integrating, and you're producing unique, perhaps one-off kinds of outputs that are going to have your preferred data formatting associated with them, that is going to be specific to the questions that you're trying to answer within the context of that geomorphological investigation. And we can keep going through the list. I'll give you a quick sense. Riparian characteristics, kind of a similar, probably a similar situation. There's some state data from Colorado Parks and Wildlife, some information from Colorado Natural Heritage Program, characterizing riparian characteristics in GIS files. You might also use aerial imagery or local surveys to do some characterization of those riparian areas. Water quality data is diverse, can come from federal repositories or might come from you in the field collecting temperature data. Aquatic biota information might come out of CPW surveys. So that might be a PDF that you're reviewing and interpreting and doing something with. Might be GIS layers, might actually be raw counts of different fish species at a specific location. And then you might be integrating those three and producing some derived summarization of that characteristic. So, I think we could spend an hour and a half talking about all these different data types, the different data formats that go along with each, and the kind of compounding of the differences that happens as soon as you take a couple of these data sets, combine them, derive some new thing with them that is something that you came up with. And then you're faced with making a decision about what format to put it in. And that, again, is going to be informed by your specific needs. And it's probably a one-off thing, and it's going to look different for every person, no matter where you are in whichever setting. So this speaks to the importance of doing some kind of structured thinking around data management.
So what does that structured thinking look like? Is it a data management plan? What are the big things that you're considering when you start down this path? I mean, knowing that most SMPs aren't being completed by one person. There's a team of people, multiple stakeholders. Like, what would be your advice in a couple minutes on where to start and how to frame this up?
Yeah. So there are a couple parts of that question. Data management planning is a separate kind of planning that you probably should do within the context of these stream management plans. When I was working in academia, I actually worked on a few projects that were specifically focused on the importance of data management in environmental data collection and archival. We did these huge cyber infrastructure, multi-million-dollar cyber infrastructure projects focused on this issue, because even academics who deal in data day in and day out are not good at it. So it's a big issue, it's pervasive, and it's unlikely to be solved in Colorado within the context of stream management planning generally, or even within the context of your stream management plan. It's going to be a challenge for everybody. And I think that the data management question about requirements, I think there was a question about requirements in there. I have not seen any contracts or language from the state requiring or motivating people to do data management planning as a specific step associated with any of these efforts. But it is, I think, important to treat this topic at some point early in the planning process. And if you've got a diverse team working on these planning efforts, you've got somebody going out and doing riparian work, and you've got somebody going out and doing hydrology work, and you want that information to come back to you in a way that you can make sense of it, then it's important to think about how you're structuring your data, not just in the ways that one CSV file can talk to another, but the simplest thing that you can probably think about is how are we characterizing kind of units of stream across space so that we are generating information for the same kind of discrete landscape units or stream units. So segment your stream by 100-meter segments or mile-long segments, or whatever scale makes sense for your planning effort, and provide that to the team and request that at a minimum, whatever analysis, whatever river health assessment or recreational values are being assessed, that the reporting is kind of specific to those segments, right? That's maybe a very minimal kind of data management approach. And then you can get more, you can build on that and become progressively more complex and nuanced in your thinking. You could start to think about, well, me as an integrator of information, I need to be able to take the hydrology information and say something about what changes in hydrology mean for changes in floodplains. And so that means I need the hydrology data to be in this format so I can use it in this specific analytical model that's going to tell me something about how sediment may move across a floodplain. And so that's a more structured kind of data management, but it's likely to be driven by the specific needs of the plan itself. But just sitting down and thinking about the whole life cycle of data from the point where you collect it from the USGS repository or the field, bring it into your office, stuff it in your computer, push the electrons around, and then put it into a report and deliver it to somebody. Thinking about the shape of that data as it moves through that chain before you do it can be really, really helpful.
Great, thank you. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. Hannah, I'm going to put you on the spot now to talk about the Colorado River Basin and your role and what the basin did to kind of help SMPs in the region view existing data and manage new data.
Okay, yeah, it's getting into a little bit of history here, going back to the basin implementation plan that the Colorado Basin Roundtable was doing as part of the state's last Colorado water plan process. There were, a number of stakeholders, particularly on the environmental and recreational side on the Basin Roundtable, that were really interested in having more stream management planning for the whole basin, kind of inspired by what I think of as the original stream management plan in Colorado up in Grand County that really helped, identify some of the key, especially on the environmental side, different values at risk and the status of different values so that, going forward with water supply planning, that could be, there could be some prioritization of projects and so on. So that stream management plan inspired a lot of people. And so there was an interest in having more stream management planning in the Colorado Basin. But the roundtable recognized that, these are very data intensive efforts, as we were just hearing from Seth. And so we couldn't just do one for the whole basin, but what we could maybe do was put together a guidance document and some data tools that could help communities get started. And really, there was a kind of an evolving series of conversations around what kind of tools would really help different stakeholder groups within the basin kind of get a head start on the process. So those conversations led to, that's kind of the background behind some data dashboards that Seth and his team put together for us that allow, you can look at some, Seth did a really great job of pulling from some of these disparate data sources to create these dashboards that you can explore flow data and water quality data without having to be an expert in the field and without having to be a data expert as far as, understanding how to integrate information from these different sources. And so, so these data dashboards were then supposed to be, a way that communities can get kind of a first cut, kind of explore some of the basic conditions and potential problem areas in their watershed. And then, getting that that base of information with a relatively low financial and and time investment, then hopefully can position communities to then focus in their limited resources on the places where they where they would need want to make more of an investment and kind of zero in on some of the general issues there.
Great. Seth, what are your thoughts in terms of like how you bridge this dashboard, this kind of example of a compiled set of data with how you can make it most useful in your stream management plan? So we're kind of talking about two things, where you can get existing data resources that are available and how you pull them in, and then how do you manage all of the stuff that you've got in front of you? Like, how do you see those working together?
Yeah, well, I think Hannah's characterization of those tools as a leg up in the process is a really good one. We really intended to support groups, as Hannah mentioned, who didn't necessarily have the resources available to get hold of a state mod model and process outputs and see what it meant for their stream of interest, or didn't have the technical expertise to retrieve historical water quality data for their area of interest. So we really wanted to make that quite easy for those groups to find that information in a central location and pull it down. You can download information as a CSV file from those dashboards, and you could then set about analyzing it in whichever way makes sense for your specific project. It's unlikely that you're going to find everything that you need to execute a stream management plan on those dashboards, but hopefully it's a good start, and it does I think reduce the burden of retrieving several of the kind of primary data types for the smaller planning group. So that's, I think I would express kind of a similar hope for those dashboards moving forward, and that is that as groups are thinking about a plan and want to inform themselves about what might be the most relevant issue facing some part of their watershed or basin of interest, they could begin to kind of formulate and inform some of those ideas through utilization of these dashboards. You're still going to be faced, if you download the water quality information from the dashboard, for example, you're still going to be faced with the challenge of the format that's given to you in, the specific table that information is given to you in, and do something with it. Integrate it with some other data set that you have, some fisheries data that you're hoping to use to develop some relationship between some characteristic of water quality and the ups and downs of the local trout population. Right? You're still going to have to do some thinking there. That's not pre-baked for you in these dashboards. They really just make your life easier in retrieving that data that's then thought about in those data management terms.
Excellent. That's a great description of that tool and how it integrates into the rest of the stream management plan data management exercise. So we have a couple minutes left. What else should people be considering when they're thinking about data management or creating a data management plan? Like, do you need to have somebody that is your data manager? What kind of budget do you need? Do we need to have things private so that no one, like privacy controls and access, like what is that all? Are there other things that people should be considering? You talked about kind of the bare bones with the river reach and making sure you have everything talking the same language, but what other advice would you leave people with as they're skimming the surface on this?
Just not to underestimate it, like even at our level, just, having a kind of a place to house the dashboards long-term. And, we had envisioned putting a little bit more time and energy into, and keeping that maintained, particularly the kind of library of different resources. But that's actually more, it's one of those things that you can get kind of excited about saying, oh yeah, we'll keep maintaining that. But it's one of those things that if there's not a regular demand for it and you're not doing it all the time, then it's easy to put to the back burner. And then you can find that you're kind of behind, and it's not as useful as it potentially could be. So I think in a lot of different data systems, even something as simple as just the calendars that lots of organizations have on their websites, there's a great little technical tool for you to do it, but you have to recognize that it is real work to keep this maintained. And so even if you don't have a dedicated data manager person, for any tool to really stay alive and useful, it should be recognized as work and be in part of someone's work plan to actually keep an eye on that, keep it maintained, and work on it, because I feel like that's one place that we've fallen short with this tool a bit, and need to maybe revisit if our organization is the best place to house that, or but just really recognizing that it's a serious task, it's legitimate work, it's not just a bullet point in a grant proposal or a plan, and you need to think through the longevity of that. So that means both your personnel capacity and your financial capacity to keep paying attention to it. So
great. Yeah, and that's certainly a good point, is we have the SMPs producing all of this data and information as a result of their plans. Where does that go, and who maintains it on their website? So kind of, again, both sides of this data management conundrum here. Big thanks to both of you for setting us off in the direction for Colorado Stream Management Plan resources with the IWMP framework that you put together. And we're really excited to keep moving this down the path. So thank you very much. And again, all the notes will be offered on the website after this as well. Thanks.